Pēana me mihi atu ki ngai tuahuriri kaitahu. Koutou mea o koutou whakaaro nui kia kahu mai a mātou ngā manuwhiri I raro I te manaakitanga. Nō reira tēnā koutou. Tēnā tātou katoa e te iwi. Me te mōhio anō, ka tika mea ata whakaaro hia ki ngā kupu I waihotia ki ngi tū heitia, kei rungi a Tuurangawaewae. Nā koutou I tahu I te ahi, nā rungi I te haramai. Tā koutou haramai ki Tuurangawaewae. Nāna te wero atu ki a tātou katoa mea āta whakaarohia mō te pai tawhiti mō tēnei reanga o a tātou nei mokopuna. Nō reire e mihi ana ki a koe, te riki nui, pokaha ki te haramai, ki te āta whakaaro ki ngā kōrero kei wainga nui te motu mō tēnei kaupapa a tō matua. Tēnā tātou katoa. Firstly, as I said, I'm going to just draw in the fire of mahuika that you brought to Tuurangawaewae because you ignited the passion and the energy that we have had for time immemorial to, at critical junctures in our history, bring that together for something to happen. Now, we're still talking about what that something is, but something must happen because whether by design or intention or complete synchronicity with what is happening at this moment, we are at an inflection point of a polycrisis globally, and that is bearing down on what is happening here in New Zealand, a post-COVID reality. Conflict and crisis, the existential challenge of climate change, and capitalism, which is eroding institutions all around the world and here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and we're not surprised that we're having this conversation, right? So we're asking ourselves, how can we draw from those global exemplars, and I want to thank our brothers who have brought your story here to Aotearoa, New Zealand, so that we can just hear and gain an understanding, because I'm critically mindful that we are the youngest of the Indigenous people who have had the curiosity of spirit to venture forth and further. So we don't have the years of colonised experience that our Indigenous brothers and sisters have, and we can't draw exactly from the same context, but we can vision out and be curious and learn and question ourselves, and that is what we have to do. We have to question ourselves and start to ask the difficult questions. Are we prepared to change the conventions that we're operating under now? Because if we were thinking about a mokopuna economic ecosystem for their well-being, what would that look like? And what are the necessary things that we need to do to try and ensure that's the destination that we're heading to? And I want you to rest on that, because even though we haven't had this conversation, by the end of the day, I think we want to land in a place where we're thinking in our mokopuna optimum state. That's where we need to be. And I had reflected on the presentation, and it sparked so many things in me. Because if we just start with where we are now, I think to myself, our solutions don't sit amongst just PSGs, Māori Land Trusts, or in corporations, or indeed, in some instances, the reality is not just intra-iwi, it has to be inter-iwi with others, other iwi, other like-minded, other partners. So I was thinking about the example and starting to consider, is it possible that we could have the type of localised or regional investment where inter-iwi strategies are thinking and talking about a master plan for growth and development in the way that we see all the combined benefits across the environment, our social infrastructure, our hard infrastructure, you know, all the things that will contribute to our sense of well-being so that we can crowd in partners. What would a master plan like that look like so that we are attracting like-minded partners into the spaces that we know we can continue to optimise and leverage from? And we are seeing kernels of that happening. We are not starting from a zero base, but maybe more of the concentration of that needs to happen, because it's no coincidence where our whenua Māori is. The tāseo don't go all the way past that gate. Hello, it stops a couple of kilometres that way, and it's away from the marae and away from some of where our whenua is. So we have to think collectively and strategically about how do we start to vision out a master plan for localised growth that actually starts to think about our partners in that kind of way. Because we need to enable critical nodal points for opportunity that over time will continue to, we'll see the type of investment in development, and actually that development is about housing whānau who don't have homes. That development over time is seeing our enterprise ecosystem grow because we're supporting our businesses. That development is seeing the kinds of schools that will grow our potential in our mokopuna and our tamariki in the way that we want to see it happening. And that infrastructure, while we were talking about hard infrastructure from this particular example, the benefit of the conversation that we can have here in our context is, yes, it can be hard infrastructure, it can be soft infrastructure, because a lot of our people are in social services, health and education, really networking and knitting that together. And it could also be in new areas. Now, let me talk about the new areas, because this might be the opportunity to move on to the other learning, is how do you adjust the regulatory decisions that are happening in your area, and I'll just speak locally. In our area, along our river, over the next 10 years, about 30 consents of wastewater treatment plants will come up for renewal. The council can't afford to invest in that. If we change the way we thought about a buy, own and transfer scenario over a 30, 40-year period, that's legitimacy to say to the council, you can't do it, we'll do it. And by the way, we want to have more of a say in how regulatory decisions are impacting both on land and into our river. It's an opportunity to think differently, and that's in a localised context how we might draw from some of the examples there. I struggle with some of the challenges in the context of the case study in itself, because you cannot dismantle the master's house with his own tools. So if we're truly talking about, we understand that that's the reality of some of the environment we're operating in today, but our mokopuna mindset obligates us to think about a different type of way of building infrastructure, capacity, upholding our mana economic model, our mana-centred economic model. And so for me, it's kind of cooking all of those types of opportunities. Can I actually add to the point that Annette raised about an alternative economic model has to work for everybody? Yes. And it has to challenge the systemic inequity, inequality and poverty that our kids are experiencing that may not be connected to the communities that we're rolling in and feel that they're totally dislocated. And if we take it that whānau is at the core of our economic model, not the individual, which is a capitalist whakaaro, then we really need to get back to basics and invest at that level in a number of ways. And that will guarantee us, for time immemorial, the type of order state that our tupuna had envisaged for us.